This person says, as an end of life doula, I will sometimes work with couples where one person is in a care facility, maybe even in a shared room. I feel comfortable having conversations with the couple about how they might connect sexually, sensually, but how do I talk to the facility about the logistics of accommodating that? Do you know if facilities ever have policies or plans for that?
Great question. So I know my experience is in the hospital. Um, I don't know if the hospital, any hospital has ever worked and has an official policy per se. Um, but we used to coach people in the hospital all the time to just simply close the door and essentially put a do not disturb sign on the door. In a hospital setting, that means telling your nurse, essentially saying, look, my partner and I are going to snuggle, whatever you want to say, and we'd like some privacy. And I'm gonna put it, can we put a note on the door, please, do not enter, please check in with nurse first. Essentially the hospital equivalent of a do not enter sign. So, and that worked beautifully. It won't work for indefinitely, and sometimes there are emergencies, et cetera, et cetera. So in a hospital facility, talking with the nurse saying, hey, we're gonna snuggle, put a sign on the door and leave it at that, close the door and away you go. Now, I'm assuming in a nursing home, assisted living, independent living centers, the sort of post-acute long-term care facilities, I'm assuming the same could be possible there. It may get tricky in a nursing home setting where a lot of the rooms are not private. So if you've got roommates, well, I suppose you could talk to them directly and negotiate and say, hey, I'm wondering if my partner and I can have the room for some time while you're playing bridge or while you're out on the whatever. Would that be okay? So that might get tricky, but it would fall down less on about policy, I think, and just about good communication. And then if you really want to like close the door and no one to walk in, you want the do not disturb sign on, talk to the nurse and see if that can be arranged. You might bump into, they may say we have a policy against that for one reason or another, but gosh, I'd push on them. This is as healing stuff gets. This is not just a decadence. So you might need to advocate, and if they don't have a policy, push them to draft one and participate in writing it that would allow for some amount of private engagement. It's essential. So I hope that answers your question.
And the next question is actually very similar to what you were just speaking about. And it's, if someone is an inpatient in their own private room, what ideas do you have for staff creating an environment and an atmosphere so a husband visiting and staying with his wife feels safe and comfortable to maybe have an intimate or sexual time? What part does staff play in this?
Hmm. Well, I think maybe we've largely answered that. I think staff can be your ally and can protect that privacy essentially. Because, in a hospital, people are just popping in and out of rooms all the time, even when the door is closed. So putting a sign on the door, you need the buy-in from your nurse, et cetera, to make sure that that's cool. And then they can help protect the privacy. So maybe that's the answer to your question. If there's more to be done, drawing the curtains, turning off that horrible fluorescent light that is common in facilities. Candles are generally a no-no, but they do make these electric candles because of fire risk. They do make these little electric candles that have a sort of a glow. They're $2 at Walgreens kind of thing. So you could bring those in. It might be asking the nurse. It might be a little much asking the nurse to find such candles. But drawing the curtains, changing the lights, protecting the space, and maybe if it makes sense too, checking in on you after the partner's left. So making sure you're okay, making sure you don't need anything. That kind of just basic support. I don't think it's asking too much of your nurse. So those are some ideas. If there are others out there, let us know. I'm trying to think of what else a nurse might be called to do in such a setting. But anyway, I think that's my list for now.
Yeah.